So we are live. Hello, everybody. Can you see us? Hope that you can see us. Welcome to the BioHunt 2021, an event organized by the Ganesha Lab in cooperation with the Chilean Venture Capital Association. This is Francisco Guzman speaking. I am the chairman of the Chilean Venture Capital Association. And I am also a partner at Kerry, where is a local in Chile where we work a lot in DC. Why are we here? Which is the title today? Well, we're here with the Ganesha Lab, which is a global biotech scale-up that offers to its founders and a knowledgeable team. It offers a lot of assistance to scale-ups and to startups companies that have a special focus in biotech. Ganesha Labs support science-based startups in their internationalization process, and that's key because, as we have seen and we will discuss today, the startups that even if they can start in Chile or any other country in Latin America, if they do well, they will have to become international and to have a real scale-up process. And that's where the Ganesha Lab offers great assistance. Biotechnology, and that's the topic today, is a discipline that requires a high level of specialization, okay? And it's very different maybe to other areas of investment in VC. In this context is where Ganesha Lab is necessary and offers a crucial contribution to the venture capital ecosystem. When we speak about investment in biotechs, we are expanding our definition above and beyond therapeutics and pharma. We are also including bioagriculture, biofood, and other related technology companies and technologies that are related to biotechnology, okay? The dynamics between biotech and biotech investment are very different than in traditionally tech investment. You will see now, we'll discuss that in detail, but for biotech company, when you have to measure them, it's really like maybe even a different language. Like if you put several people to review different companies, once you get to the biotech companies, are different rules, the ones that apply. And that's why we're here, okay? Today, we have three experts with us who have a solid experience and track record evaluating and investing in biotech startups. So I will welcome and introduce the first of our guests is Gwen Kenny. So now you can see the video of Gwen. Welcome, Gwen. It is great to have you here. Gwen is a partner at IndieBio in New York, advising and investing in companies at all stages of growth. Gwen was a venture partner at Fusion Fund, an early stage fund based in Austin. Gwen spent 3 years with Singularity University Ventures, an impact-focused accelerator, and helped launch their first batch of startups. Prior to venture, Gwen spent 18 years on Wall Street investing in public equities. She started her career at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and promoted to portfolio manager to a $300 million innovation-themed hedge fund. Gwen, correct me if I am wrong in any information or the numbers. I hope I am not. And Gwen also spent 2 years at UCSF researching on immunotherapy and oncology therapeutics and image recognition of breast cancer histology. She currently sits on the advisory board of the Yale University School of Medicine. Gwen, welcome. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now we will present our second guest, is Pablo Fernandez. Please go with the video. Welcome, Pablo. It's nice to see you again. Pablo Fernandez is general partner of the Alerce Venture Capital Fund and venture capital manager of Endurance Investment. During the last 5 years, Pablo has invested and participated in several investment rounds and early stage companies in areas such as food, medical devices, agriculture, and others. He's also a director of GenPro DX, Andes AG, Polynatural, among other companies. Pablo holds a degree in Business Administration from Universidad Católica and a master's degree in Management Science and Engineering from Stanford University. He's leading one of the very few early biotech funds in Chile. And now Pablo is in the process of raising a large Series E, A, and B biotech fund with another group of GPs, which will give a lot to talk about. So welcome, Pablo.
Thank you, Francisco. I'm happy to be here.
Nice to see you again, Pablo. Finally, I will introduce our third guest of this panel, Marcus Shreyer. Please go with the video. Welcome, Marcus. Marcus, he's the host today. That's the truth. Marcus is a German executive and entrepreneur with over 25 years of international life science industry and market experience with leading manufacturers like Thermo Fisher Scientific and Fisher Instruments. He lived and worked extensively in Europe, USA, Brazil, and Asia. Marcus is the founder of the Ganesha Lab. So Marcus is the real host here. Welcome, Marcus. I already explained a little of what Ganesha Lab does and what they offer to entrepreneurs and startups. And Marcus, as an angel investor and through the Ganesha Lab, has reviewed hundreds of biotech startups and invested in over 20 of them. He's an active member of Chile Global Angels, the most active angel investment network in Chile. And Marcus provides a unique global view on biotech business, given his combined experience in large-scale biotech industry, entrepreneurship, and venture investment. So welcome all the panelists. We have un panel de lujo, a luxury panel here, as we say in Chile, a really great panel. So we will start.
Thank you so much, Francisco.
Yes, please. If you want to say anything, please go ahead, because I have spoken a lot yet and we haven't heard your voices. So please feel free to say something.
No, thank you, Francisco, and thank you to Gwen and Pablo and to all participants today. We're very excited for that day. We'll have some great conversation, I hope, and also some great startups. So really excited about this day. Thank you.
I'll just put in one description for IndieBio, which is, we've really increased the check sizes for our companies, for our portfolio companies. So in addition to the 6-month accelerator program, our check size is $500,000, so $525,000. And also, if you're on the therapeutics track, it's $2.3 million US dollars. So a significant amount in addition to the free lab space and all the help that we give you. So if there are interesting biotech companies, please do reach out to me. My email is super easy, gwen.kenny@sosv.com.
Great information. Pablo, do you want to say something, or I should start with the questions?
No, I mean, super excited to be here and super happy to share the conversation with Gwen and Marcus. I'm a huge fan of IndieBio. I think that what we have seen in the last couple of years about how you guys been pushing the biotech world, not just with IndieBio, but with Rebel Bio, FoodX, and all the other accelerator programs that are associated with Rebel Bio is pretty unique. I think that in some way you've been like an inspiration for us, like basically hosting and helping Plodera, Notco, and many other companies from Chile and Latin America. And I think it's a great chance to have you here and to see how you can help us to boost the biotech ecosystem in Latin America, where and I'm sure that Marcos shared the same idea with me. There's a huge opportunity and a lack of technical support. And I won't just say funding, because I mean funding is one of the issues, but I mean the technical support and about how we can help these startups to move forward and faster. I think it's something that we could really, you can really help us to make that possible here in Latin America.
Yeah, and just to second that point, the accelerator stage, it's so much more than just money. And it's not just introductions, right? It's working with the founders on the pitch deck and actually identifying the correct market and the correct product market fit. I calculate TAM for our founders because a lot of them are not business majors, right? So I joke with our founders that really you get 8 people that are full-time for 10 companies. So it's a lot of hands-on. And really you get 8 free employees during a 6 months period. So we write you a check, we give you money for the privilege of being your free employee.
Well, I'm not that sure how to follow because you already tackled so many great points. So I will leave a little the script aside and let's tackle on that. What about founders on biotech? Because I would bet my money that in any startup in the biotech business should have great scientists in any different areas, but great scientists. But great scientists are not great CFOs, are not great finance guys. They might not be good at raising money. They might not want to be with people and selling, actually. So the first question is exactly on that. What do you think, Marcus, is the biggest challenge for the founders of startups that in more cases they are just focused on one side of the business, on the scientist part, and there is this other side that they just don't see at the beginning? What is your experience in that ground?
You more or less described it already. It's a big challenge for the founders, and on the one hand, that always depends a little bit on what technology you're following. But what we have been trying to instill into those scientific founders, on the first hand, a little bit of understanding of the business side. That means we teach them some of the business tools, etc., and then see, are they evolving to really develop that capacity of being a CEO, or are they more developing the capacity of a CTO, and then help them find that partner, find that CEO, for example, or find that CFO, because many times it's just 2 scientists founding that company. And sometimes, for example, in therapeutics, sometimes it's important to have in the beginning really more the scientific focus and have some strategic advisor who has more that business experience to really guide them towards, how many molecules do they need to look at to really get to the point, etc. But at the end, I think it's very important to help those scientists to identify where's their sweet spot. Do they have the capacity to grow into a CEO role, or is it better to help them finding good partners who help them bring the company to the next level as CEO partnered with a CTO and etc. So I think, but very clearly, most of the founders which are coming in to our portfolio in the beginning need that support to really first build that understanding for business, and that is very essential. They don't get that in school, no?
No, that's the issue. Most of the things are not taught at any school. When in the same line of argument, what have you seen and regarding what do the founders need when they are great scientists but they just lack the business experience? And in the line of what Marcus was saying, are the founders willing to give a step aside or even step down to give room to others? What is your experience in this?
So I'm going to take a alternative view just to keep the conversation really interesting, right? I actually think scientific founders or scientists make great founders. I mean, if you really think about what science is, it's running experiments, right? And what do you think product market fit is? It's running experiments until you find the right product that fits the market. So in my view, the skill set is directly transferable. It's the same muscle, it's just used in a different way. So, for the founders that pick this up quickly, it's like, they were trained to do this in another life. I would also say that, even if you don't like the whole, fundraising and whatnot, there are certain types of business like therapeutics where as a scientific founder, you only need to get the company to Series A, and then you have enough money to essentially hire out a pharma executive to really round out your team. So it really depends on the type of business. But, for us, we've had some great success with sort of scientist founders, right? So Geltor is definitely an example of that. We also have Finless Foods, right? Is that, the scientists just learn. I would also say that, don't overestimate the amount of financial work that you have to do. And when you're a seed stage or pre-seed company, I always joke with founders that there isn't enough F to C or to O at the CFO, at the seed stage to, for you to hire a CFO. And also, I don't want founders to overly stress on how pretty their deck is. It's all about the content, right? I don't really care about the color of your deck. Even if it's just plain white, it's fine. So, I interviewed Pablo Zamora of Notco recently. And I really, my view, just using him as an example, is that, a lot of VCs stress on the importance of IP. In my view, the real IP is the scientist. It's not number of patents, right? Is that the smart scientists can always get around patents. So the real asset is really the scientist. But that's my personal view.
I love that view. Actually, me as a lawyer, I actually have learned that having a patent or several patents by itself, it doesn't mean that much. Some people might kill me for saying this, but just the patent as itself, I'm not sure if that's worth it a lot, as opposed to another company that might have a great secret or some process that they just didn't want to register it and it is not public. So I agree with that view. Pablo, you have invested in several companies, and what you do in your fund is not that typical, because your fund is not purely a biotech fund. You do investment in several companies that cross different areas. So what is your ideal group of founders or the ideal group of people that should be founding a company where you would invest?
I think that Gwen nailed it when she said that scientific could be good founders as long as they're willing to try and learn and develop a hypothesis, try it and see what they get out of it. I think that the biggest challenge that they face is that usually professors or researchers will not get published if their thesis doesn't work well, and they don't get compensation for that. But in the startup, you do get a compensation for that because you learn something. Then you realize what is not working, and then you can adjust your target and move forward. And that is something that sometimes can be hard for a scientist or a researcher to fully understand. But it's great. I mean, you basically, if you do it fast and you get out of it the most learning that you can, then you're definitely moving forward. And I think that's one of the challenges that this type of startups face. To me, when we launched our first fund, Fondo Lerce, our thesis was that there was a lot of investment from the public side on human capital and in different areas of biotech related with agriculture, food, animal health, because those are industries that are pretty relevant here in Chile. So we said, okay, there's going to be a lot of people graduating from universities or from applied research centers. They will be launching new ways to develop crops or launch food or stuff like that. So it worked. What it was difficult was to understand what was the field that they were playing at, and to understand the industry and what were the forces that were relevant and how you could address those forces and develop short cycles of tries and learning processes that could help you to move forward. And I think that that's something that it's different from the scientific side. We've never been into therapeutics or vaccines or molecules, because those are really hard, really long. But the idea that you can develop short trials to understand a little more about the field that you're entering, about the forces that are in that industry, about the players, about the need, how urgent is the need for the consumers. If you address those issues, then you might find a way to develop a business plan. If you're not looking into those and you're purely focused on your science, on your IP, then chances are that you're going to miss the target, because basically what you need to build it's like a business, and that business should come from like a need or like an urgency. And to connect that urgency, that timing with your scientific development, it's like a crucial part. And I think that that's one of the more complicated part that we have seen. I mean, I will say that in some of our first investments, we forgot about that. We didn't exactly know about it. We thought, okay, so if you have a good product, that will sell by itself. And it doesn't work like that, because there's a million forces playing in that industry that if you don't address them well, if you don't understand the key players, then you will miss your chance.
Thank you, Pablo. Fully agree. You talk about a point that is very important, and you might have a great science, but you might not have a great company, and vice versa. There are great companies that raise a lot of money, and the science is not that surprising. So it is tricky. It is tricky. Gwen, please tell us and give us some tips. What recommendations you would provide for a biotech company when evaluating an early stage round of financing? So you see a lot of these companies every day. Which are what you would say that 3 key issues to have in mind for them?
Yeah, I'd say that, I think there are some commonalities between biotech startups and, tech software startups. I think number 1 is definitely product market fit. You gotta, I would say that 80% of even indie bio founders, when they first get into the program, struggle with this, but hopefully by the end of the program, we've helped them through that process. But it's really, you gotta be able to tell investors what is the problem that you're solving. So don't be a hammer looking for a nail, but tell me what the problem is, right? And so, I'll give you an example is that, a lot of engineers are really good at building tools, but then you become a hammer looking for a nail, right? And so, I don't want engineers to feel sad about this, because there is a way to do this, which is, I know you can make all types of hammers, but the way you find the right nail is doing a lot of customer discovery. So that's actually one of the things we really drive home at IndieBio, is that the first month, not even the first 2 months, the first month, I want you to have talked to 30%, a third of all of your potential customers. Not your first batch of customers, all of your potential customers. So, unless you're already mailing products, unless you already have revenue, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, I want you to be calling people, I want you to be talking to people, because it's this process that gives you, where's the pain point. That's what's going to allow you to get product market fit. I think the second thing is, this is particular to bio, is that, don't give me a technology, give me a product. And the difference, it sounds like the same, but the difference there is, for example, if you have something that is, one example that's already a existing company is Billion-to-One. So they have a molecular accounting startup, right? And so they're able to get the accuracy of sequencing. So that's a technology. What is it useful for, right? So it became a product once they were able to find an application in NIPT, which is non-invasive prenatal screening, right? So once you find an application for that technology, then you're special. Then you're fundable. If that makes sense. And I would say the last thing about biotech companies in particular is that even more important than traditional software companies, you need a team. Because bio it's just a lot harder. It's more, in my view, it's more worthwhile work, right? Because you're improving people's health, and you're improving planetary health. But it's a tougher game. It's a longer game. It's a tougher game. So I think, making sure that you have a good team around you is even more important than if you're building, Facebook.
Thank you very much, Gwen. Interesting point. It is very interesting. I'm thinking on the long run game and what it means to be in this world as opposed to other other industries. Also here in Chile, it's very common that you have great research at universities, but they don't cross the path of the private companies, and that's one of the big challenges that we have here. To join forces among the scientists and universities and the research centers and the private world. Marcus, you have a lot of experience in this. I would say you're one of the most experienced people here in Chile regarding investment in biotech. So what can you say regarding all these different areas that make a company important? which are the ones that you focus the most, like the scientific part? We discuss something about IP or trade secrets or whatever you want to name it, because there are different ways to address this, or the product, the possibility to market the product, like internationalization. What is what you look at the most, or what really moves you when making an investment?
On the one hand, I echo what Gwen is saying. Customer experience, or customer discovery, even better, is absolutely crucial in the beginning. So if very often, I would even go a little bit further and say the product alone is not enough. We need a solution very often. And again, it depends a lot if you're in therapeutics or if you have a medical device, etc. Because in that solution, you need to consider, how do you reach your customers? What is the reimbursement strategy behind it? Or can you do your innovation not only in the product but also in your business model? So that is one of the very important things. And even in our interviews, we are already nailing into that, and we're going deep to really understand: is it a company which is thinking about just a technology? Means a technology, or are they really thinking about a product and a solution? Yeah. So from a mindset perspective. So, and if they're open for that, then it's already a great point for us to start, because then we can really help them to get to that point. If they're so scientific that they only think about the science itself and not opening their mind to application and use, then that for me is a red flag and no-go. Yeah? The other side, of course, the team, very important. We have one aspect here in Latin America which is evolving, which I would say is very less in more evolved ecosystems, and that is really that switch from thinking small to thinking big. We are living, I always say, we have the advantage and disadvantage. We are living extremely protected between the ocean and the Andes. Yeah, and with a long stretch up and down, but still very, very clearly limited. And that also develops a mindset. Yeah, and what you learn when you are living in a country like the United States, or even lesser, but still in Europe as well, is to think above and beyond the borders. Yeah? And that is something which we are really working on very hard with our Latin American founders, to really learn to open their mind and understand that cultural difference. We're even starting our program with a specific focus on cultural differences and to open their mind in that regard, because it's something which is really limiting. It's limiting yourself, because if you think small, your solution will be small. If you think big, and then of course, absolutely, if there is any sign that the founder or the founding partners are not open for advice and for listening, that's a huge red flag for me. The other things, like you mentioned, the IP, the regulatory, etc., that is a process for us. We have our partners who are expert in that. We have people like Gary, etc., who really understand that, and we bring them in contact, and that's the process. But these essential elements are, for me, super critical in the decision making. If it's a startup, worthwhile to really put your time, effort, and money in or not.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Very useful. Pablo, in the same topic, how do you evaluate a biotech company as opposed to other companies that you do evaluate? And this question is specific for you because, as I mentioned at the beginning, you have invested in several kinds of companies. So how do you change your mindset when you're evaluating a biotech company as opposed to others?
I think that, in biotech, following Marco's idea, what we're looking for is to fully understand the story or the storytelling that the founders are crafting, and to understand what is the plan what is the voyage that they want to take us, what is the venture that they are inviting us, compared to what IndieBioHUNT, that basically has a platform of people with 10 people fully dedicated to this in different fields. We try to gather advisors that will help us with some of the technical issues that many of the some of the companies, a lot of the companies are facing, or to help us to understand a little more about the technology that they are developing. But for us, the crucial elements has been the type of venture that they have been inviting us. What is exactly the new world that they are envisioning, and how they think that they will play like a crucial role in that new world. That aspect, I think it's especially like in early stage, where we will usually invest many times, even before IndieBio, or before the companies like will approach or think about like moving to the US. That's one of the key components to see that the vision that the team is building could make a difference in the new world that they are thinking about that will happen in the short future. And I think that's become like one of the most crucial aspects. Then we will definitely look at the team and the urgency and how relevant that technology could become for the industries and the corporations that are involved in that market. So I will say it's kind of like a mix of those elements, and to see how would that make sense for us to become one of the investors in that startup.
Understood, and makes total sense. Now, for all of you, because given the timing and the questions that we're receiving that are so many, let's try to mix a little the topics. First question, whoever wants to answer, please let me know. How do you value these companies? And think about the following. Biotech companies, this is not for you, you know it, it's for the audience, will have no profits probably at all at the beginning. And when you enter, probably if you look at the numbers, will be only red. So how do you value this? Who wants to go?
I can give it a start. It's a difficult one, because there is no mathematics directly behind it. There are some helps, and it really depends on the on the stage of the company. When they are very early, I honestly look at the team. I look at the team. What potential does they have the team? Give some rating for the team. I definitely look what have they accomplished already. So it means, have they an in vitro test completed? Do they have a first prototype established? Do they have some partners already? That means, did they reach out to potential partners which can help them in that difficult journey? And those elements I just put on some numbers and try to see, how do they stack with comparable companies I have seen. And that's really, for me, the first step. Because there's no mathematics. Of course, when they're a little bit more advanced, then you can take a look at comparisons. That means you can take a look at what is in the market, what have other companies raised. But it also depends then on the region, because, in the US, the valuations are higher than in Latin America, etc. But these are guidance. This is a little bit what I look. There are some other elements, but I want to give the word also to Pablo or Gwen.
Pablo, I see that you're moving your mouth. Go ahead, please.
No. I think that an interesting aspect about this, about the whole discussion about valuations, that we have seen that in the last couple of, even the last couple of months, especially in Chile, all the valuations have gone up like incredibly super fast. Like after what happened with Notco, what happened with Corner Shop, and there's a couple of more cases. In Latin America, it's booming regarding startups. And I wanted to address that with Gwen. I mean, why you just told us that you are increasing the size of the checks, and why have you seen that this is becoming like a more relevant issue, and how, because this is directly related with the whole question about valuation that Francisco has just started. So why how that decision came out, and what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, all really great questions. So we increased the base check for every single one of our companies to $525,000 because, what we saw was our founders are fantastic at science and at business. We don't want them to waste their time raising money, because it does take up, 6 months of your life where your business is sort of on hold. And it's just such a shame, right? Especially for scientists. And so we've had a couple of venture funds that have invested with us historically that really trust us. And they just, they came together as a consortium and they said, we'll co-invest with you. Just give them the money so that we also get in at the early stage, just like you guys. So we actually were able to negotiate a slightly higher cap for that doubling of the money. So that's why now it's 525. And then for therapeutics track, the reason why it's 2.3 million, most of that money, so it's tranched out and the valuation actually steps up. And most of the money, 1.5 million, is at the higher end of the later tranche valuation. And the reason for both the higher valuation and the bigger check for therapeutics is it just that we want the scientists to be able to focus on getting IND, which is the first set of data that you need before phase 1 of FDA approvals. But our valuations really act for the therapeutics track as a floor. So what we tell founders is, if you can get higher valuation, go do it, right? But the thing is, if any VC tries to shortchange you and give you a lower valuation, you can bring out our SAFE. SAFE is the convertible notes. You can bring out our SAFE and say, no, like we have a better term sheet from SOSV, right? And so, I think, to answer Pablo's question, we're really trying to save founders time to focus actually on the business and on the science and not waste the time on fundraising. I think, I think Francisco's other question is, how do you determine valuation? So our first check is everyone gets the same terms, right? It's just impossible to argue on valuation when it's just, one or two people with an idea, right? It's kind of like, we can go back and forth on this. It may not be worth our time. However, by the end of the program, we really push for our founders to get the best valuation they can get, right? And so, I would get in on all of these VC meetings. I would talk to the VCs, on one-on-one. I would join the conversations with the founders. And the whole point is to get them as much money as possible at the best terms. However, I will say that valuation is determined by the market, right? Mostly, right? So I will say that, I've actually advised one founder to take a lower valuation because it was a great VC. If they will bring in sweat equity, intros, revenue for you, that's actually worth, a lower cap.
Great point. That's something that we have discussed internally in the Chilean Venture Capital Association with Pablo and others, and Marcus, of course. The money is not the same. 500,000 K is not the same depending on who will give that money to you. So it changes a lot who you have as a partner. Quick question: is there any jurisdiction where you don't invest, or would you require a Chilean company to incorporate in a specific jurisdiction in order to invest?
The answer is no. So we invest globally. So SOSV has 5 full-time lawyers for exactly that reason, is that, we make sure the documents are good across the world. We've had great success with Chilean companies, so we're big fans. I've personally visited Chile twice. I did the whole Torres del Paine trek. At IndieBio, my nickname is Latin Gwen because I've recruited so many of the Latin founders, and so literally they call me Latin Gwen now. But my Spanish is not improving as quickly as my reputation is. I see the audience is clapping now. So we're huge fans. And I would say, before the audience joined, when we were offline, I was telling Francisco that I actually think the Chilean government is doing a great job. Like, of all the countries that I've seen, the Chilean government is doing the best job in terms of boosting the entrepreneur environment, especially at the early stage. And that's where, the initiatives really need to be. Later stage, you're playing a private equity game. It's no longer a startup. So, huge kudos and huge praise to Francisco.
It is great to hear this from someone else, because among us, all the meetings that we have internally where Marcus and Pablo and others participate, our discussion is always like, we have small tickets, we need larger tickets, and that's where the discussion goes. And sometimes we don't see what we have at home. So this is really encouraging. And thank you for your words, Gwen. And I love that to hear that you have a LATAM crew at IndieBio. I think that's a good asset for all of us here when calling you and for companies that are pitching to IndieBio. So that's great. Marcus and Pablo, do you have final words? Like, we have been discussing many topics. It's just that I will put just one more topic. We're off time. Diego is already yelling at me by WhatsApp, but one final topic quickly. What do you think about companies in the biotech? But I am addressing one question from the audience, more in the pharmaceutical side. When touch the idea of, okay, what about FDA stage 1 or not? When you're about biotech, you can get into the FDA track or you cannot at all, depending whether this is a device or whatever. So Marcus and Pablo, what do you think about this and how do you face this issue?
From my perspective, we want to really look at all elements of biotech because the market is still small and young. But we will hear today from one therapeutic startup which started last year with us with some basic research which he did in Brazil. And then we worked with him very closely to further that to a point where we will announce today, and sorry, I need to say it today. I need to just say it because I'm really happy about it. He will join IndieBio. No, he joined IndieBio and will be moving to New York on the 9th of September. And that is really, this is really what our mission is. We want to help those founders to find their path. And then, of course, we need to help them to identify which FDA track is the right one, which regulatory track is the right one, what is the right point to initiate those discussions, etc. But there are, even in agriculture, we have many startups in agriculture. They also have regulatory processes. So it's very important to address that in the early on, build that understanding, but then know exactly at what point in time is it getting relevant that you go into that path. But always keeping it in mind because you need to put the basis in place. For example, do you have your laboratory work clean and documented so that you can provide the information for it? Yeah. So I think it's very relevant. We need to build that knowledge over time, but the point in time to really go for it very often comes when they are going to the next market, when they're going to more mature markets. And then it's really the question, do you start in the US with FDA or start in Europe with EMEA? And that has, again, many, many aspects to consider. That's all with my view.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Pablo, closing remarks of this panel. You will stay here and you will give your comments on the presenters that we will have later. But Pablo, your final words on the issue of discussion. You can choose either valuation, FDA, or regulatory process. How do you want to tackle it?
I'm going to open a new line. Like, what I've seen is like there's a huge. I mean, when you start seeing about what is happening with Y Combinator, that must be like, it's kind of like the IndieBio for software. You see that there's a lot of startups from Latin America jumping in and entering the program. I think that we need to make that push that will see that also happening at IndieBio. I mean, now IndieBio has opened like 2 cohorts, one in New York, one in San Francisco. I know that there's in the New York cohort that there's a Mexican company, and I think there was like a Brazilian one also. But I think that we're still missing to see a bigger number of startups from Latin America moving forward and understanding the potential that Biotech has and the advantages that we have as a continent. I mean, here we have like extremely good human resources, human capability, human knowledge. We have a biodiversity that is completely different from the rest of the world. We have a competitive advantage in terms of like being able to do FDA trials for a fraction of the cost that will be in the US. Colombia has a strong capabilities in terms of like biotech. Chile, we have seen a couple of devices moving from Chile to the US, running the FDA trials here. Brazil also has that. So we need to take a bigger advantage about that. And we need to make that connection stronger. I mean, what Notco, Protera, and some more companies have built, it's pretty amazing. I mean, what Pablo Zamora, now that he's joining Ganesha, it's an amazing bridge to get to the network that is growing that it's in San Francisco and in the US. And I think that it's something that we need to think more about how to enhance that, because that's the kind of connection of opportunity. I mean, if we get to make that Leonardo Alvarez from Protera shows the amazing companies that are starting here in Chile, like Done Properly or Living Co., that Pablo Zamora helped us to connect some of the funds that we have that are here with some of the startups from Latin America that are being incubated in IndieBio. I think that that's a way how we can make this ecosystem stronger and also bring more attention from investors to the biotech world. So I think that that's part of the challenge that we still have. I mean, and that's part of the tasks that we all need to address.
Great first session. We were past not that much, and we're Latin American, so we can't be late. It's fine, okay? So now we will close this first session. To the audience, give us 30 seconds, and we will be back with you to present the next panel. So we go to backstage. Give us just a few seconds.